right, welcome everyone to another episode of Podium Stories. Today I have a very special guest in the building. His name is Darren Magarro. He's the founder and president of DSM, a full-service marketing and PR firm in New Jersey. They're a one-stop destination for advertising, marketing, PR needs, and they've kind of become the in-house marketing firm to many companies, helping them manage and execute their advertising, marketing, and public relation initiatives in a unified one-stop effort. Today, we're going to have a very interesting conversation in terms of what makes a good leader, how to build a company from scratch, bootstrapped, how it changes the roles between zero and taking care of production to building a larger team, and the mental part of being an entrepreneur and how it can affect us in the day-to-day. Welcome, Darren. Thank you for being here.
Hello, how are you?
Darren, how's it going?
Good. How are you, Marty?
I'm good. How's everything going in New Jersey?
It's like every day is the same day. Every day is the same day. But you know, me and my family were healthy, so that's all that really matters. It's been a long 10 weeks. My kids are finishing school today, so.
And they're still at home, I'm guessing?
Yeah, they are. I have an 11-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 5-year-old.
So you're the person in the world that's most excited for schools to open back up, right?
Yeah, it's been a little crazy. With my two older ones, it's been pretty easy.
Right.
You know, with having school and everything like that. My 5-year-old is finishing up her last year of pre-K.
Mm-hmm.
So we call her, is my daughter. Her name is Tessa. We call her the tornado. She's a disaster. But where are you in the world? This is pretty cool.
I'm in Barcelona right now. I'm in Spain.
No way.
Yeah, pretty I go cool. Back and forth between here and New York. My family's from here, from Spain. So when I saw that things were kind of crashing down and the world was going to shit, basically, I was like, let me get close to home, because my mother's on the other side. So I was like, let me be there in case something happens. It's very close to her.
I hear you.
But yeah, everybody's healthy here. We're starting to open back up. The gym's starting to open up soon. So,
cool.
It's good news. It's good news. I appreciate you being here, man, and taking the time to do this.
Sure. Absolutely. It's my pleasure. Happy to be a resource. Like I said, whatever I can do to, help the audience out. This is actually, I have another podcast. I did one on, today's Wednesday. I did one on Monday. I have this one with you. And then I have another one tomorrow with a woman, Olga, who's here in New York City as well, it's a 9-minute podcast. She helps creatives who, I don't get this, they don't like money. She teaches them how to make money. I don't get how you could be in business and not make money, but to each his own.
Dude, that's a big, I started as a writer, and I'm going to start with the questions soon, but I started as a writer, and I was like, look, I'm not going to be broke. So yeah. I built a business from that, but and now it's a content creation agency. But
that's cool. So you're based though out of New York.
Yeah. So my team's remote, and I'm usually the person in New York. I'm a dual citizen, so I kind of like fly back and forth very often.
Cool.
I played college basketball in the States, but I was raised in Spain, so I'm like over and over. I live in airports basically. So we work with only American clients, but we have a team mostly based in the US. But since it's remote, I can kind of get away whenever I want and keep working and all that. But yeah, I know you're doing a lot of podcasts. Hopefully these are not the questions that everybody asks you. If they are, we'll just talk about rugby and soccer and all that. I'm good at talking about soccer.
Look, all I'm doing here, like I said, I've it's amazing over the last 10 weeks, the power of LinkedIn, because that's where predominantly, my agency is now going on 13 and a half years. Mm-hmm. And I guess I've done a good job in that I've made myself obsolete. Yeah. So really my primary function, I have a great woman who's our COO, and I have a great woman who's our CFO. And then, we have a fantastic team of like 13, 15 people. I get to do what I love. I can bullshit with the best of them. And, that's kind of what I do. And I love doing this stuff. I've really enjoyed helping a lot of people and just connecting with a lot of people.
Yeah.
what I've realized very quickly, I'm just shutting everything out here. What I've realized very quickly is that there's power in my stuff. Like, I don't think about it because I lived through it.
Right.
But the interesting part about it is that there's so many people who have these grand plans. But like when I started this, I literally, like, it was me and a laptop out of a front porch with no clients. And, I've over 13 years turned it into 15 people, 6,600 square foot office, and a multi-million dollar company.
I love that.
And for the first 5 years, for the first 5 years, we literally had no credit line, no money. Everything that we grew the company with was from what came into the company.
That's crazy.
So I can't stand people who are like, we got, financed and all this shit. And I'm like,
just do it, man.
Dude, first of all, don't complain about anything, because if you're coming to me and complaining, like, it's falling on deaf ears, because I didn't have shit. Like, nobody gave me a chance. But also, like, be smart with what you do. I had, my parents were on the older side. My dad, it was his second marriage to my mom. I was an only child. So my dad passed away when I was 18. And one of the things that he told me, like, he never graduated high school. He was born in 1927. He was 50 when he had me. So it was common sense stuff. Like, dude, and he had his own business, and it wasn't a big business, but he said, you'll make it if you don't spend more than you take in. Like, you're a basketball guy. Like, you gotta love the Charles Barkley isms, like when he comes up with this stupid shit that he says, and you're like, wow, it really makes a lot of sense. Or like Yogi Berra, like, like those types. That was my dad. And it served me well for the first 3 years of the company. It was like, if you don't spend more than you take in, you can never go, belly up. I was like,
makes sense.
Sound advice. Yeah.
No, for sure.
Kind of makes sense.
For me, it was a similar story. I'm still like much more in the early stages. So like, the company's been running for 2-3 years. But I graduated from college, and I was like, I want to do this thing. Let me get back to Spain, where cost of living is so cheap, and save up, right? And just, I would, like you said, laptop, a coffee, and living at my mom's. I was raised by a single mom, so like living at my mom's for a couple of years and just making. And now, like, things have changed after 2 years, but now that we have a laptop, there's no excuse to not do whatever you want. Like,
there's no excuse for anything. Like, absolutely. You either want something bad enough or you don't.
Absolutely. So let's do this, because I think we've gotten into the podcast like already. So I'm going to do the intro later and add it at the beginning. Cool. But this is something that I actually wanted to ask you, right? Because you started with a history degree and then made a change to a career in marketing because you couldn't find a job, right? So tell me more about that transition and how it went through.
So
I just thought it was very interesting to like make that.
Yeah. So as I was speaking to you before on this, my college career was very, it wasn't a straight line.
Right.
So I started going, I graduated high school in 1995, went to the University of New Hampshire. I got asked to walk on to play baseball there. So I went up there, and 6 weeks into my freshman year, on a Monday morning, got a call. My dad dropped dead. So my mom was back here in New Jersey, and she forced me. I was home for a week, came home, did the wake, did the funeral. She forced me to go back up. To her credit, this woman lived alone through one of the hardest winters. There was like a snowstorm every Monday, and the people around her, our neighbors who we had been living there for, 15, 16 years at that point, everybody gathered around her, helped her. Everybody was like, you're going back up to finish your freshman year. So to make a long story short, finished my freshman year, came home, was going to transfer to a school. My best friend went to Boston College, so I was going to transfer to a college in Massachusetts, Stonehill, to play baseball, to be a little bit closer to him and a little bit closer to home. And I had a car at that point. So basically did that. 6 weeks in, decided, you know what, not digging it up here. I had a mentor of mine, a gentleman who was like a is like a second father to me. He's down in Florida right now. He said, I got you. Don't worry about it. I'm going to get you a union card and you're going to become a laborer in New York City. So you don't want to go to school. It's fine. This was what should have been my first semester of my sophomore year.
Mm-hmm.
Going to get you a union card. And he's like, you're going to be making great money. You don't want to go to school. Great. We'll get you working. What he didn't tell me was that I was going to be hanging 18 feet up in the air, on the rafters, putting fire retardant up in New York City skyscrapers for like 8 hours a day. So I would literally, my back was destroyed. So that was September. By November, he took me out to dinner. You know, we catch up once a month. And he's like, so I want to, you know, I was coming up on what would have been my second semester. And I'll never forget it. We went to this place out by us, a steakhouse. And he's like, so how's things going? And, you know, he had a big job at Viacom in Manhattan. He goes, how's things going? I'm like, oh, they're going great. You know, he's like, so what are you doing are you going to keep working? I was like, you don't even have to worry about it. It's already done. I've already enrolled at Ramapo College. Like, I'm not doing this the rest of my life. I got the lesson you taught me. I got it very loud and clear. He's like, that's exactly what I wanted to hear. So I made great money for a semester, learned all about what real life was like if you didn't have a college degree. Did a semester at Ramapo, had a great friend who did a year of prep school here in New Jersey. And his dad wrote a few letters for me, helped me get into Lehigh. And from there, realized I was in way over my head academically. Right. And took history because everybody there is either an engineer or a business major. Realized there was no way I could get through Lehigh. Took history, was going to be a teacher, couldn't get a job. A friend of mine who graduated a year ahead of me from 2 towns over, she played field hockey. She goes, why don't you come and, we still talked. And she's like, why don't you come interview for a junior media buyer job? And I'm like, what's that? And that's how I got my foot in the door. I got the job, got my foot in the door, worked in Manhattan for 5 years at different agencies, and then came out here in 2005 to an agency. Had just gotten married. I was working on Toyota. Excuse me. Was working on Toyota. Working on, oh my gosh, hold on a second.
You're good, man.
Was working on Toyota, was traveling out to the West Coast 4 times a year. Got married. My wife, her family owned a quarry business, a 5th generation quarry business, 115 years old. She's like, dude, I never see you. So came out to an agency out here, worked there for 6 months, and then I pulled a Jerry Maguire, and instead of a goldfish, I bought my laptop. I went to IKEA, I bought a desk, and I set up shop in my front porch.
I love that. And one thing you mentioned already, like in the community, taking care of your mom as well and helping you. I read that you've, when you talk about starting the business and growing the business at the beginning, it was very organically, right? And so I wanted to ask you about how important those relationships and that community in New Jersey, which is something that you guys also mentioned a lot in the website as well, was in the beginning, and how has that affected your values and your culture later on as you grew the business?
There's a great side story to this. So we call ourselves an enclave for New York City expats. And our agency is unique because of the work-life balance that we preach. So I started this because I didn't want to, when I was commuting into Manhattan, I worked in the Saatchi and Saatchi building, which is down on Houston Hudson. So coming in from New Jersey, I had to take the bus to the Port Authority, then take the subway all the way down to Houston and Hudson. It was 3 hours of my day, every day. And that was on a good day of commuting. So when I started this, it was really with the values of providing, and I can't with honesty say that like I thought it was going to be 13 years later. If I would have said this is what DSM would have been, I would be lying through my teeth. I didn't think it would be 15 people. I didn't think we'd be multi-million dollars. At the beginning, I literally was just like, let's see what we can do. And the community rallied around me. So I grew up in Wyckoff, New Jersey, a suburb of New York. And when I started it, like I said, I bought my laptop, went to IKEA, and I just hustled my ass off. I went to people that I knew, people that knew me since I was a really little kid. And basically, we got a men's clothing store, one of my best friends that's been in town for 40 years, got a landscaping outfit that, like I said, my wife's family business, they're in the quarry and rock and stone business. That was a client of theirs, got their business. But the story, the beauty of DSM, when I quit the other agency that I came to in New Jersey, it was a Friday, so they got a T-Mobile co-op. So I was supposed to work on auto agencies in New Jersey. And I said, I don't want to travel anymore. He's like, it's great. You can, you could work on auto agencies in New Jersey. You can, be home for dinner every night. You can coach football, because I wanted to coach football. We were planning on having kids. My brother-in-law coach. I was like, great. That said, I was there for 6 months, like 2 or 3 months in, they got a T-Mobile co-op. And of course, I was the only one with national experience. So they were like, great, you can travel to Detroit in January, and you can travel to Florida and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, guys, the reason I came here was because I didn't want to travel. Friday, I was traveling from DC on a train into Newark, got in a car, called the owners of the agency, 2 brothers, and I was like, guys, either you keep me on New Jersey-based business or I'm done. They're like, we're done. Got back to the office. This was a Friday. My wife and mother-in-law were down in Florida on vacation. And I went and got a rotisserie chicken and a 6-pack of beer. And I waited for my wife to call because I had already quit my job. And I had a 6-figure salary. I was, 28 years old. We were, it was like every young person's dream.
Yeah, for sure.
And she called, I'll never forget it. And she said, hey, how was your trip to DC? I'm like, it's great. I had a talk with John. I think I'm going to start my own ad agency. And she was like, oh, great. Like, you're going to write a business plan. Is this like 6 months, 9 months, a year? I was like, no, I went to IKEA. I bought a desk and I'm starting Monday. I was like, you did what? And at the time we didn't have any kids. We didn't have any, we were renting a house. So it was, fairly easy. I just got up and started in the spring. We had an outdoor porch. The house was from the 1920s, had a screened in porch, opened up all the windows, worked through the summer. It was great. And then sometime in like October or November, I looked like Jon Snow in Game of Thrones. I just kept throwing blankets on me because I was freezing. And my wife was like, why don't you just move down to the basement? And that was kind of,
the first office.
Yeah, the first office. And, my ex-partner came on like 8 months later, the creative side of the business. And he was there for 11 years. And, we just kind of parted ways last year, but it was the community played a big part, and it still does, because we're a Jersey-based agency. You obviously did your homework and read through the site. We're a Jersey-based agency. We try to stay, within a 150 to 200 mile radius. So we go up to Boston, go down to DC, try to, we do our best. We have a client or 2 in Manhattan, but we try to stay out of Manhattan. It's just, there's so many agencies and there's so many big fish. So it's been really, to answer your question, been very important.
And one thing, by the way, that phone call you made, it reminds me of the phone call I made to my own mom, my mother, when I was working in finance, 6 figures, I was 21. I was like, I'm going to start my own business. She's like, when? I'm like, tomorrow. I booked a flight back to Barcelona, so I'll be there by midnight. Awesome. But it's interesting to me, and this was when I was doing my research. How it seems like you guys are probably like the most self-aware business I've ever seen, right? Because I've seen you write about we were never going to be the largest agency, but that was on purpose. We have stuck to the core values that we wanted to be. So, and then staying focused on that local area, more or less community. It was so interesting to me how that differentiated you from all the other businesses around and other creative shops that, I meant, there's thousands in my head.
Yeah, it really, there's 2 parts to it. So I got involved with a mastermind group, a gentleman, who is a friend, this guy Joel Cohen has a company called CEO Stars, and what he does is brings groups of 8 CEOs of agencies from around the like non-competing agencies, and we did 2 months worth of like calls together. And I don't know if we're going to have the group formally, but it brought me in touch with guys in San Diego and guys in Tampa and, you know, New York and New Jersey and Boston and, you know, everywhere in between. And one of the things, I was one of the youngest guys on the call. There was another guy, this guy Trent, and I were probably the youngest guys on the call. But one of the things that really struck, I mean, there were guys who had agencies who like sold their agencies who were just doing consulting now. And to me, it's almost as important to understand what you want to be, but it's almost as important as what you don't want to be. And that, I guess, brings the self-awareness. To me, it was, like I said to you, like we're an enclave for New York City expats. That to me, the people that are there are all New Jersey people that some of them did the Manhattan gig. They're done with it. Our COO left a really good job at Condé Nast Publications because she didn't want to do it anymore. She, you know, she lives the next town over for me, got 2 kids. Her husband works for the NBA, and it was a change of lifestyle. And that to me, like if you're looking for the city, there are people, nobody's wrong, but if you're looking for the city and you're looking for that, like you do the New York thing, like that's, you know, and you're obviously much younger than me and have way more dark hair than I do at this point in my life. But like, I love the New York City thing when I did it,
Right.
you know, but I grew up here. I wanted to coach football here. Like I give back to the community here. We're very nonprofit oriented with regards to, I said this on a podcast with a woman, it's funny, the podcast that I've been on this week in Barcelona and another one from a woman in Ireland. So I've been all over the world.
International podcasting.
Yeah, international podcasting. And one of the women in my life who I give the most credit to with regards to business is my mother-in-law. She really, you know, they obviously have 103 years. They're 103 years older than me on DSM, but she gives back. And that's like a core tenet of what they do as a company. And the one thing I can say is that if you are going to start a business, whatever business it is, giving back has never failed me with regards to people. You might not work with us. We might be too much money or we might not be the right fit, but nobody says your core values are in the wrong place.
Right.
And that to me, especially, you know, I was talking, like I said, with this woman, Clodagh, over in Ireland on Monday. And it was interesting because you probably have the same perspective on what's going on in this country. Everybody's watching the US right now.
Sure.
As to what's happening. And it's a really, it's a time for everybody to come together. And that's really hard to say. And maybe it's naive and people won't agree with it. But at the core value of what we are as, you know, go to the Bible. It says, love your neighbor. Like, that's it. There's no other, you know, if you're not loving your neighbor, you're not right. Like, it's just not right.
I think it sounds simple, but it isn't, right? It is simple, but people just make it overcomplicated.
Agreed. You actually, that was another core tenet of my dad. Sorry. Keep it simple, stupid. And his other famous one, and I did some pretty stupid stuff when I was a teenager. There's no sense in being stupid unless you show it, son. But yes, to your point, and I love what you just said and how you said it. It's so simple, and yet everybody makes it so freaking hard.
Sure.
Just care about the person next to you. How hard is that?
It's really not that hard at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like you said, the States, I'm a dual citizen, so I have both Spanish and American, but it's the center. It'd be naive to not agree that it's the center of like the universe right now, right? and the country leading a lot of things. So like we all look to you guys, like from Spain, from Europe, from other countries that I visit. We look to the US and we steal a lot of things and we implement it in our own cultures. So I think people in the States forget that, because people in the States also don't care as much usually about the other countries in the world, but you guys are our leaders. So we look towards you a lot. I want to be very respectful of your time, and I know we said until 3, so in 5 minutes or so. So I wanted to ask you a couple questions before we wrap this up. One of them was about your role has changed a lot in the last 10, 12 years, from being in the basement doing it yourself to now being the CEO, right? So I want to ask you about what are the skills that the company needs from you that it didn't need on day one, and vice versa.
Yeah, the skills, the skills that were needed at the beginning was just everything.
Right.
You know, like I said, I started the company 7, 8 months later. My creative partner came into the company, and it was really like out of necessity. He was working a mile and a half down the road. He was a creative looking for an account guy. I was an account guy looking for a creative guy. So it fit, and it worked for, 11 years. The skills, and then we grew it slowly, and, until we added the digital side of the agency. It was kind of like a slow burn. We were growing 20, 30%, but the numbers were small. So it wasn't, I think it took us 3 years to reach $1 million in revenue, which, now looking at it was kind of funny, because those skills were, I had to be a little bit of everything at the beginning.
Yeah.
You had to be the cheerleader. You had to be like, I was actively doing sales. And the funny part about it is now I'm back to actively doing sales, because my initials are on the door. And really, the big part, am I the best sales guy in the world? Absolutely not. And we have a team of people that are involved in doing it at the agency. Like when I jump off with you, I got to do a proposal that I have to get out by the end of the day today. But the responsibility, the big thing about having your own business, and I guess being the tip of the spear, is when things go pear-shaped, you got to be the one who yokes up and takes the responsibility.
Right.
It's like being that athlete in a locker room, the one guy that no matter what, when things go bad, you got to be the one to face the reporters. And that sucks sometimes, but it's a role that I enjoy. It's a role that really, there's a lot of people in this world that are way smarter and way more talented than me. The people that I look up to and the people that I read about and the ones that I value are the ones that are willing to take it on the chin when things go bad. And there's a certain responsibility. Those are the leaders. Those are the people who lead to me, because a lot of people want to take the credit when things are good, and not a lot of people want to take all the shit when things are bad. Sure. And that to me is that's the biggest trait for me that has carried across the entire span of DSM. When it was, when we were all working out of our houses or had our previous shop that was like 1,800 square feet, it was tiny. It was about being a person who would yoke up and take the heat. Now it's more about being the face of, the face of the franchise. Right. Like I said, I'm obsolete. I have the one thing that I think I'm really strong at is finding people. I've become the ugliest house in the neighborhood, which is awesome.
Which is great.
But it's awesome, right? Because I have a great COO. I have a wonderful CFO. They manage their responsibilities. I stay out of it. The team that we have, everybody knows their roles. It's really important for the leader, as the leader, to keep people rowing in the same direction. I think that's the biggest trait right now. Those core values that you talked about earlier. It's one thing to speak on them, right, but it's another thing to live them. And if And our agency, I'm probably like the third oldest in the agency. I'm 43, and we have people spanning from just graduating college last year, 22 and 23-year-olds, all the way up to like late 40s.
Right.
And I think the biggest thing that I do right now is make sure that the messaging that we're putting out, it doesn't mean a thing unless you're living by it. It doesn't matter what anybody else does at the agency. If they see that I'm not living by what I say or what we put out there, then it's all for nothing.
Yeah. And why would they do it, right? If our leader doesn't do it, why would I follow that value or
right?
Why would I send that message? I love that, Darren. I actually, when you
I have a few more minutes if you want. It's not like I have another like 10, 15 minutes. It's all good if you want to ask more questions.
It's interesting to me because when you talk about being absolute, right? That's been one of the things that's been on my mind lately about how we progress on my own agency. Because I started production, sales, sending invoices, like everything. And now it's moved to a place where I'm just like the new business guy. So I generate leads, close them, but the production and the account management's taken care of. So that process for me is something that's in the next 3 or 4 years, it's our next step as an agency, because we're a small team of 4 or 5 people. And hearing you talk about it makes it so much more crystal clear. You know, I'm guessing it was not an easy process because you have to let go of control and all that. But at the end of the day, when you can achieve that, it seems like you are working on what you're best at, and people are working at what they're the best at.
Yeah, and I'll never forget because I used to pair it up. I'm a big soccer guy. I love Liverpool, so
I'm sorry about how we beat you on the final, because I'm a Real Madrid fan, so I live in Barcelona.
Would you stop it? Sergio Ramos,
he's the best player coming from Spain in the last 20 years.
if Salah was in the game, it would have been a totally different story. You're still all right though. I like you.
We don't lose.
A funny story. So my wife. So when my 2 older kids were young, I used to do billing once a month, and I used to go on a Saturday when nobody was there, and I'd sit down and turn on the Premier League, and for like 3 or 4 hours, my wife she's like, you just want to be out of the house, like you don't want to be like having to watch the kids. And I was like, no, I actually need the time. At that point, you know, we've also like we've gotten out bigger clients with, you know, bigger budgets that, you know, so we don't have as many clients. At that point, we had like $42,000 clients a month. So it was like it was legitimately like a lot of billing to do.
Yeah.
And I used to go in there, and when Charlene came, the great thing about our team, so our CFO, my wife and I graduated high school with their younger brother, and she was in college. She actually played soccer at Duke. She's one of the most decorated, you know, athletes I've ever known.
Yeah.
And she came in, and through coaching football, her husband was my football coach in high school. And I started coaching football in the town that I grew up in, and I had to take a concussion test through Rutgers. Yeah. So I walked into his office when I finished it because I had to give it to him. He was like the rec director. And I said, Andy, you know anybody in town who's looking to become like a fractional CFO? Like the company's just getting too big. I can't do this anymore. Plus, my wife's going to divorce me because we have 2 kids at home, and I can't spend 5 hours watching the Premier League on a Saturday morning every month. So he goes, well, Charlene, their youngest, their daughter is in the same grade as my oldest daughter, and she was going into kindergarten. So he's like, Charlene's looking to get back into work. And I'm like, great. Now she worked for like, you know, JP Morgan, you know, she graduated Duke, worked at JP Morgan. She shows up at an interview at our little dinky office, and she, you know, all proper. I haven't seen Charlene in probably like 10 years at that point. She comes in, she's all nervous, and she slides her resume. She's like, do you want to go through my resume? And I'm like, okay, we can go through the resume. So I'm like, you've known me since I was like 14. We used to park in their driveway to go to school. And I'm like, oh, look at this. You tell me about when you took, what country was it? It was Brazil. She's like, we took Brazil out of a national debt crisis on my team. And I'm like, what? Like, tell me about that. And I was trying to be serious about it. Yeah. She's like, well, I'm like, Charlene, if you took Brazil out of a debt crisis or whatever country it was, I'm sure you'll be fine running $1 million company. Yeah. I was like, when do you want to start? Yeah. When do you want to start? And so that's how this company, the one word I use about the people at DSM is serendipity, because, I met our head of traditional accounts, Christine, through working on the board of an animal charity, an animal shelter here by us. Zinka, our COO, she reaches out. Other people have brought their friends in from other agencies. One of our account managers, Ryan, brought, another girl that worked at her ex-agency. It's the culture of the place, and what we're going through right now. Like, we're doing a rebrand, not a full rebrand, but more about like, I'm at a place in my life where, as you can see, like, I wear like Psycho Bunny shirts. Like, this is me. Like, I'm not for everybody. And I'm at a place right now where I've been doing this for 13 years. And when I started, I was 30. We didn't have any overhead. I could, I was brash. Like, and that was like the demeanor of DSM. Like, we've always been a little rebellious. We've always been a little, out there. If you're a suit and tie guy, probably not going to work well with us. And it's learning to, now that I have children of my own, now that I've been married for 15 years, I'm still that guy, but it's learning how to balance the maturity, like taking the scars that I've gotten over the last 15 years and like marry it to that brash personality.
Right.
And trying to, because I'm not comfortable being that guy that, I'm not comfortable being that guy anymore. It's not me. Like, I want to be a good role model for my kids. And, I have daughters that are like, I have a daughter that's a teenager now. Like, it's just, you try to balance that growth of what it starts out as, and then bring it into something that is a little bit more mature, but still a little off center. Like, we don't want to be normal. We don't want to be average. We're still those guys, but we're a little better. We're better. We try to be a little better every day.
Do you ever feel that, because now that you have so many people depending on the business, right? Like, before it's just you, like your wife can divorce you and then it's just yourself, right? But now you have children, you have a bit larger number of employees, you have a bit larger office. Like, do you ever feel that responsibility, like, pressuring you into business? Because I think that's something that we, as entrepreneurs, we don't often talk about, right? Everything's pretty, but behind, we're dealing with some things. So I want to ask about, how do you deal with that? Oh shit, if I fuck up now, like, there's more people that get affected other than just me.
I can tell you that it almost killed me last year. If we're going to be transparent, and we're going to be like, bought out a partner, our sales director left, had some clients leave, just signed on, our new space, a few years before. People's lives I'm responsible for their livelihood. And we're a family. We're only 15 people. So everybody knows everybody. Yeah. I personally know, our younger folks. I try to know their parents, or at least on social, to like, so they know who I am as a person, and they know that I take it as seriously, like being a good mentor to them.
Sure.
That responsibility, Marty, that responsibility almost killed me, man. I take it very seriously. Last year, my wife and I, this is really like the first time I'm opening up about this. It was really difficult. My wife should get a Nobel Peace Prize for, like, what's the highest honor she could get, because she went through a lot. She stood by me, and it was really, really hard. The other two people, the team in general itself, we turned over almost an entire team. We moved into our space 3 years ago on June 2nd, and there was a picture, because it was torn down to the studs, of us on scaffolding. There were 22 people on staff 3 years ago. Guess how many people it came up in March on my feed on Facebook. Guess how many people were still in the picture?
15, 16, more or less.
Three. The whole staff turned over. Some of it was, people leaving.
Yeah.
Some of it was, we hired a lot of people out of college. They were there. That one guy who was our director of digital, he lived out here, started when he was a year out of college. He was there for 7 years. Him and his girlfriend moved to Harrison.
That's
life things, life occurrences. Others happened abruptly. But yeah, it's a responsibility that I take very seriously. And if you're a CEO and you don't do that, I don't care how big your company is, then you're failing miserably.
Absolutely.
You're failing miserably because your job. I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek. Like, leaders eat last. That's it.
Yeah.
That is it. If you're putting yourself above your team, you lost.
Yeah. I think as entrepreneurs, we tend to say, I can handle everything and no biggie, I got it. But I've opened up about having struggles with mental health over the last year when things weren't going as good as I thought they were going, because I really fucking care about my business, right? And you really care about yours because it's our baby. So I think it's interesting to hear your story, and our listeners and myself, we appreciate you opening up, because I'm dude, am I alone on this shit, or do other people feel what the fuck, right?
If you're not feeling this,
right.
if you're not feeling these feelings and you're leading a team, you get out of the game. Get out of the game, because I will say this again, my wife, there's 3 women in my life. Well, there's more than 3, but my mom and my mother-in-law as well. 3 women that should get the highest honors from the United States government or whoever could provide it on mental sanity. My COO, Zinka, my CFO, Charlene, and my wife, Samantha, the 3 of them, there was a time where I was completely out of it. Like I said, it almost killed me last year.
Yeah.
Charlene and Zinka basically ran the company for 2 weeks. And having that's when I say rowing the boat in the same direction and how important that is. You get to a place as you're growing, and then all of a sudden you realize that all the pieces that are in place, although they might be good on paper, are not great at the convictions of the company. Right. And what it means to, what the company means. And ultimately, it's my responsibility. My name has been on the door since day one. I take it very seriously. And, I put it out on LinkedIn, I think, I don't know when it was last month. Michael Phelps did a story on SportsCenter about mental health and, what he's going through. And, it was done again, it happened after the Olympics, but it was also done because of COVID. And, I sit on the board of a veteran charity, a homeless veteran charity here. And there's a guy who, very decorated veteran, did multiple tours. The mental strain of the last 10 to 12 weeks, he didn't die. He didn't commit suicide because he was dealing with the effects of a very real thing, left behind a wife and a family. And it's a struggle, it is a struggle, and I commend you. I don't care where you are in the journey, but I commend you, and don't ever lose that, because if you lose that, I think you lose the humanity of what being a leader is about.
Absolutely. Last question. I promise that you talk about a lot about how women in your company help you, and that's something that I read, that you guys have a big percentage of women there. So I want to ask you how much or what have they offered differently from working with other guys and stuff? What value have they brought to you personally and as a company, having such a great gender diversity?
Trust is huge. being on the same page, having the same values. The diversity in and of itself is important. I think it's vastly important. I joke with a lot of people that I'm like kind of like I'm a big dumb animal, like I'm just a dude. But having, to me, the biggest part of having the women that we do on staff brings a level of accountability that's different. The women that compliment me on staff is different from the men that are on staff.
Right. That's
we
what
have,
I would request. That's
we
why
have, yeah, like we have great dudes, like our art director, our director of strategy, you know, the, Matt on our art team, you know, like we have we have good humans, like that's first and foremost.
Yeah.
The women on our staff are more, they're very particular about things, where I'm good, like a big picture type of guy. Like the reason our C-suite complements each other so well is because Zinka focuses really well. She's meticulous with operations and making sure that all the questions, like I'll reach out to somebody. I have a software that like somebody pitched me on LinkedIn. I'm like, we got to use this. She comes in, she looks at it and she's like, all right, let's take a step back. What's the cost? What's this? What's that? How's it going to work? Charlene runs the numbers like we grew 130% last year.
Right.
That's, you know, I wouldn't recommend that either. Like that's crazy in and of itself, but
sure.
There's a different level of meticulousness that the ladies of DSM bring, and a different level of empathy. Like the dudes, we all have fun. We get along, you know, we shoot pool. But there's a lot of the girls at DSM, the ladies at DSM who do the same thing. Like that, we have a fun team that I think the biggest, if you came in and spent a day with us, there's a level of trust there that is almost like a family, where it's almost like having brothers and sisters. We disagree, we fight, we can fight with the best of them. But at the end of the day, we're all on the same team.
I love that.
And in that, you know, similar to you playing college basketball, you know it. You have issues with a teammate, have it out in the locker room, man. You want to throw a chair at me? Throw a chair at me. But do it inside. And when you leave that, it's done. And it better be, it's like kissing your wife before bed.
Yeah.
Don't go to bed angry. Give her a kiss, say you're sorry, do whatever you got to do during the day. My wife and I, we've known each other since we were 5.
Wow.
And so there was, you know, before we dated, there was, you know, we were friends, our moms were friends, you know, whatever. And we've gotten into way more than our fair share of, you know, of fights, but we try not to go to bed angry. And that's what that's what we try to do at DSN. We have disagreements. I had a disagreement with Zinka last week about, you know, a piece of content that was getting put out. Mm-hmm. We had it out. We did it. At the end of the night, before I went to bed, I texted her. I said, I know you're not going to pick up the phone because that's, you know, that's just the way it is. And that's cool. But I wanted to let you know I'm sorry. And you know, you were right. I was wrong. And that's how it is.
I love that, Darren. I really appreciated you being here, man. I thought that this was a great episode. I love to do this in person whenever I can get back to the States, man, and come by New Jersey.
Whatever I can do, Marty, to help you, like I said, happy to help. When you're back in the States,
for sure,
come out to the suburbs. We got a pool table. We got darts. You know, we got what else? We have cornhole. We work hard and we play hard. So
you don't want to play with me at cornhole, though. If you want to win, you don't want to play with me.
Challenge accepted, bro. I'll go and practice every day. Listen, man, you're always welcome. Come out to Mawa.
Appreciate you.
Be safe in Barcelona, and let me know when you're back in the States. When you know, and you have my email. I'm an open line as you're going through your journey. If you need me, just reach out.
I appreciate you, Darren. Awesome, man. Take care, brother.